Hello everyone and welcome to Raquel Teaches Code. My name is Raquel and in today's tutorial I'm going to teach you how to use HTML to insert an image into a web page. So let's get started. Alrighty, and let me just zoom in here so that I can where is the zoom at? Here we go. Zoom in a little bit. Equal sign. Okay. And let me just do that one more time. And hopefully that's big enough for everyone to see. Wonderfulness. Okay. So I'm continuing with the HTML file created in the previous tutorial. And so what I'm going to show you is how to insert images on a web page. So just very briefly, I've already opened this web page in a browser window so you can see that no images have been inserted yet. Okay, so back to the code editor. So in this example, in this tutorial, I'm going to show you a few different ways to insert images. Okay, one is going to be inserting an image that is already in the same folder as we can see here in this file called spaghetti-carbonara. I'm going to show you how to insert an image that's not in exactly the same folder as the HTML file, for instance, in a subfolder of the current folder. And I'm also going to teach you how to display an image that's located somewhere else entirely, such as another website. And so we're going to go through all three of those today. So the first thing you should know is that inserting images is done using the image element or the image tag. And there are two things to remember about the image tag. One, it is an inline element, and we'll see what that means in a second. But essentially, inline means that it displays side by side unless you format it some other way. And then also, it is a self-closing tag, meaning that you only need the IMG and some attributes in that tag, and then opening and closing brackets. So let's go ahead and first insert our first image. What we're going to do is we're going to insert this image into the web page here called spaghetti-carbonara. All right, so let's go in here and we're going to just go to the next line and we're going to type IMG. And so the two attributes that we're going to use for this image tag are source and then alt, right? So what the source attribute sets is that it identifies where the image is located, right? So in this case, when you're using Visual Studio Code or really any other modern code editor, if you start to type the name of the file, as I do here, you'll see it gives suggestions, and right away it shows the image file. And so I can just click on it. You also can just type the name of the file if it's there locally, and it'll be fine to insert it that way. So that's the first attribute, the source attribute. The next one is the alt attribute, right? And what the alt attribute does is that it allows us to use text to identify what the image is. And this is useful for several reasons. Number one, it's useful for accessibility, meaning that if someone is using the website that cannot see or is using a screen reader, it helps to identify what is supposed to be in that location. Another reason that it's good to use the alt tag and to fill that in is because if there's ever an error with this image, meaning if for some reason it gets removed from the location where it's supposed to be, or maybe in typing in the file name you typed it in incorrectly, right? Having a value for the alt attribute will still let people know what's supposed to be there, right? So I'm just going to make it a very simple description. I'm just going to put spaghetti carbonara on a plate. Okay, and then at the very end of this image tag, we're going to put the closing angle bracket. All right, so let's go ahead and save this change, and then let's go to the web page and refresh and see what that looks like. And it looks like I see something gray here, but I don't see the image. And if I scroll down, it's a very, very big image, right? So the image was inserted successfully. However, it does need to be sized down. So there are additional attributes that we can add on the image tag. And usually this is handled with CSS, but for today's example, to keep it pretty simple, we're going to use what's called the width attribute. Okay, and that just simply indicates how wide the image should be. You can set a relative size, meaning a size comparable to the page, or you can set an actual fixed size using pixels. I'm going to use a relative size, so I'm just going to set it at 25% of the page width. Okay, and I'm just going to save that change here, and let's go back to the browser and refresh. And now we can see, great, that we can see the actual gray part that we saw the first time was inserted, and we see the image here. So great. This is how you insert an image. And this is an image that is in the same folder as the HTML file. But what happens when you want to insert an image that's in another location? So let's take a look and see how that works. For this tutorial, I've also created another folder within this folder, right? So I've created this folder named Folder John, because you know, that's the way we do in Philly. Everything is a John. And so I've inserted another image file in there, okay? And it's, as you can see, it's named Tiramisu. So how would I place that, or how would I indicate the location for this? So one of the things about HTML is that there are rules for indicating where things are located, where files are located. And you're going to get a brief lesson on that, but in the description for this video, I'm going to also link a brief article that explains it in more detail. But for today, I'm going to just show you how we would work with this one and then an image located somewhere else. So remember previously that I said that the image tag is an inline tag, right? Meaning that if you put just one image tag out after another, they're going to be displayed one after another. So I'm going on the same line. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. We're going to use the image tag again, indicate the source, right? And so now what we want to do is, since it's a subfolder where we're working at, we want to start with the folder name. And as you see, as I start to type, it indicates it there. And then I can just click on the name of the files, right? So you can either use the suggestions provided by your code editor and click to insert the location, or you can start typing. So when you're trying to insert an image that maybe is in a subfolder of where you're at, which happens very often, right? What you will sometimes get is projects where you'll get a folder that has the HTML file, and then that folder has subfolders such as images or JavaScript, right? And so you need to be able to know how to reference those things that are different locations, because sometimes when it comes to website projects, you're not allowed to move the assets around. So in this instance, referencing that image that's in the Folder John folder starts with writing the name of the folder, then a slash, then the name of the image file. Okay, and then we want to go ahead and do the same things. Add values for an alt attribute for this. Tiramisu coffee dessert, right? That's a decent alt text. And we're going to go ahead and set a width for this as well, so we're not surprised with any oversized images. We're going to set that to 25% and then add the closing angle bracket. And let's see what this looks like when we refresh the page. So now you see that when that's refreshed, the second image is placed right next to the first image, right? And if that's what you want to do, if that's how you want the page to look, that's great. But if that's not what you want to do, there are other ways to format the HTML so that it displays in a different manner. So if we go back to the text editor, if I want this second image to be on a new line, what I can do is I can enclose it within a paragraph tag. I can also use what's called the break element, and I'll show you what that looks like. So first, let's just enclose inside another paragraph tag, right? And you'll see that it added a closing paragraph tag here. So I'm just going to take it out, put it at the ends. I'm going to save, and let's refresh this page, right? And now we see that the tiramisu image is below the carbonara image. The other way we can do this is that instead of using a new paragraph tag, we can put in the break element. Again, this is something we'll learn more about in later HTML lessons. But we can use the break element. We can save our changes. Then you'll notice that the gap between the images is a little bit smaller because the space between a break element and other ones is smaller than between those of paragraph elements. But the achieved result is the same. Okay, so that's how we insert one image that's local, which is the carbonara, and one that's in a subfolder, which is the tiramisu. Now, how would we insert an image that maybe is located in a different location altogether? So I'm going to show you that as well. So right here, and again, this link is also included in the description for this video. This is an image that I've saved to one of my GitHub repositories so that it's available for anyone that wants to copy it and use it as an example. So when you're trying to insert an image that is at another location, such as a website, you need the entire URL of the image, okay? And so a lot of times you'll be given that. If it isn't given to you, you'll have to look at the image on a web browser, usually right click on it and you'll be able to copy the URL for that image. And so I've already taken that step of copying that from the GitHub repo where I uploaded this image to, and I'm going to copy this. So in this instance, when I went to display an image that is at a URL, we're still going to use the source and alt attributes, but the source attribute is just going to contain the URL instead of a local folder location. So I'm just going to insert another, actually let's insert a paragraph here. Oops, not what I meant to do. This is the joy of doing stuff live. And then I'm going to insert the image tag. And let's just put that closing bracket there so I can, the source tag. So in the source tag, I'm going to insert that URL. And let's, you know what, let's word wrap this. I'm sorry that I didn't do that earlier. Okay. So what I've done here for the source attribute is I've inserted the URL for that image that I just showed you earlier here that I just had saved in a text document. Okay. And now I'm also going to continue and go ahead and add a value for the alt attribute. Right. And we're just going to call this limoncello spritz in a glass. And in case you haven't gotten a hint, I like to eat and drink, and I particularly love Italian food. And this is stuff that I enjoyed in Rome, so I'm going to share. And then we're also going to set a width to this, just to be consistent with the size, and we'll see what that looks like eventually on the page, right? And we're going to add the %sign. So let's go ahead and, save these changes. And now we're going to go to the browser. And let's refresh. So right now, so what we should see after this is that an image of some tiramisu, some limoncello spritz should display underneath this image of the tiramisu. So let's go ahead and refresh. Not sure why this is taking so long to refresh, but look at that. A beautiful image of the limoncello spritz. Okay. So this is exactly how we insert images on the internet. You have 3 ways now. You can insert a local image. You can insert an image from a subfolder of the folder you're currently working in, and you can also insert an image that's in another location entirely as long as you have the URL. So I hope that you found this helpful. If you did, please be sure to hit the like button. And if you know anyone that might find this video helpful, please go ahead and share with them and try to let them know that it's good to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for checking it out, and I look forward to seeing you on the next tutorial video. Take care.